Good morning and welcome to the True Disciples broadcast. For the next 30 minutes, my goal is to inspire you, to educate you, challenge you, and hopefully for some, activate you into a confidence of taking your faith and engaging your culture. My name is Dr. Kevin Baird. I am a pastor and have been for nearly 30 years now at Legacy Church here in Charleston, South Carolina. I've also been a college professor, academic dean. I've traveled really all over the world sharing the gospel, and I'm also husband, father of 3, overall nice guy, and I am so glad that you have tuned into this radio station and you are listening to me this morning. Here in South Carolina, I'm also the executive director of the South Carolina Pastors Alliance. We are a growing network of over 300 pastors here in South Carolina who have linked and networked together in an alliance. In fact, many of these are happening all over America. And what we do is we're helping clergy use their influence for faith, family, and freedom. And we are hoping to influence public policy to better reflect evangelical Christian thought. And so, again, I'm so glad you've tuned in. I know many of you do this on a regular basis. Some of you, it may be a first time. I want to say a belated happy resurrection Easter greeting to each one of you. As you can imagine, being a local pastor, resurrection season, Easter season is an incredibly busy time. And the last couple of weeks, we've had to run previously recorded programs because of all the things that were going on at the local level. But we are back now, brand new shows, and excited to be with you. I want you to listen today because I'm going to share just a couple of things. I thought, Easter season being really a season of newness. I mean, it's often said the spring brings about a sense of newness. It brings about a sense of, restoration, refreshing. Obviously, as a Christian, we celebrate resurrection. Jesus and his resurrection is the preeminent theme of this time of year. And we celebrate these themes, and so it just is a natural segue. It's a natural sort of leap to talk about new things, rebirth, and all those important aspects that we all need. We all need a reboot on occasion. We need a second chance. So I thought that maybe I would use this post-Resurrection Day Sunday to simply one more time share with those of you that may be new in the listening audience, some of you that have tuned in. I know in the local church, on occasion, I will reboot the vision. I will remind the people why we are here as a church, what we are doing, what needs to take place, how we're going to reach these particular goals. And it's just important to renew and restate the vision and the purpose and the mission of your local church and congregation. Well, I think it should be with a radio broadcast. The True Disciple broadcast is here with a mission. Our mission is to help educate, train people, inspire people, hopefully on occasion, to take their Christian faith and not to be timid, but to step into the cultural arena wherever that may find you. It may be at the workplace. It may be at school. It may be within a family gathering, something as simple as family gatherings you find yourself in, your network of friendships, or it could be the political arena, the governmental arena, where our values are as valid as any other value system to be presented at the table, to be articulated clearly, and to be able to be shared and even codified because we believe that our values work. And so that's why this program is here, and hopefully you feel a sense of empowerment, a sense of a connection that you are not alone. If you are living out your faith as a Christian believer, and sometimes we find ourselves in hostile environments, but I want you to know that you are not alone, and there are many untold thousands of people who hold your same values, and we are doing our best, as Jesus said, to be salt and light in our culture. And so I want to just spend a little time and sort of reboot our vision and renew it. I can't announce it today, but I believe I have an exciting interview for next Sunday, And if I'm able to secure that, I think that'll be a great interview. So you'll want to be prepared to tune in next week because we want to do that. We want to just give you a variety, sometimes messages that hopefully inspire, sometimes interviews, sometimes like today, a little commentary. And so if we mix it up and we cause it to be a little eclectic at times, hopefully that'll keep your interest and you'll keep tuning in to this radio station at this time slot. Hey, if you want to get in touch with us, I want to spend just a moment up front and give you some of our connect opportunities so that you can know more about me, more about our local church, more about perhaps this broadcast. And it's always important to stay connected, and I would love to hear from you. You can check us out on our websites. We actually have two websites. One is from Legacy Church. It's actually Legacy Church SC, like South Carolina.org. LegacyChurchSC.org. And the other one is SC Pastors Alliance, no spaces, scpastorsalliance.net. Both the church as well as the Alliance are sponsors of this program. And you can find us as well at Legacy Church on Facebook. The Alliance is on Facebook as well. In fact, that may be one of the best ways to keep in touch with what's going on. We're on Twitter at Pastor Baird or at SC Pastors. You can check out the church on YouTube. Just type in my name and then put Legacy Media with no space. And if you want to see what goes on at our local church, you can actually step into a service without ever having to step through the front doors. And so you can know a little bit about us before you even get there. And we encourage you to take a few moments and begin to do that. And then there are also contact links on the website. But if you just want to write an email, just remember Legacy Church SC. It's just like South Carolina, Legacy Church SC at AOL.com, Legacy Church SC at AOL.com. And I would love to hear from you. All the past programs from True Disciples are on the media links. You can also, again, hear messages and literally hundreds of things by way of information that you can gather through those media sites. And I encourage you to do that. And if you'd like to connect, if you'd like to underwrite or support us, there's ways that you can do that via those media links and websites. So again, we're glad that you're with us here today, and we're on the great radio station WTMA 1250 on your AM dial, and we're just sharing a few things, rebooting, and giving you a little vision. Here in South Carolina, we have had some interesting days. You know, we don't have full-time legislators here in South Carolina. Our legislative session lasts from somewhere around January 1, whatever I think that first Monday or Tuesday is of January, and then it ceases the first week of June. And of course, since it's only a 6-month time period, which I know for many people, they're saying that's a great thing because we don't want our legislators, in the halls of Congress making various laws to invade our life any longer than they have to be there. And so we're in a state where it's a half-year legislative session. However, during that legislative session, as you can imagine, there are things that come up that are important. There are things that do have to be accomplished, and 6 months is not a great or lengthy period of time. And so what happens in our state is that when we begin to hear of particular legislation or bills that are making its way through the process, and it's an interesting process in this state because usually it's written and presented, it may find co-sponsors, and then it goes through a subcommittee meeting, and in that subcommittee meeting, they may choose to listen to testimony. People may come in. In fact, in South Carolina, it's kind of a neat process. You can literally, as a citizen, come to the hearing meeting. You can sign up right outside the door, and they will call you forward, and you can sit down at a desk in front of your state senators, and you can share with them what it is you feel or believe or any factual information, and it really is an opportunity for the citizens to be involved, and I have involved myself in that process as well. And then it moves, of course, from the subcommittee to a full committee, and then out of full committee, it goes to the Senate floor. I'm finding out in a lot of these instances that if there is a contentiousness that surrounds a particular bill, that the minority may attach to it a report, I believe it's called, and what that means is that As it goes onto the floor of the Senate, the only way it can be brought up is through special order, and a special order movement takes, of course, a vote and several things, and it's just another hurdle with which legislation that may be controversial has to go through in order for it to be presented to the full body. So if you can imagine in a 6-month time period, all the bills that might be before the Senate, it having to go through a subcommittee, making sure it has time for a hearing, soliciting that testimony, sending it on to the full committee, having another hearing, all the votes that have to be taken, perhaps minority report status is attached to the bill. It has to go to the floor, and then it has to go through those particular hoops until it finally becomes a viable piece of legislation that's debated one more time on the floor of the Senate until it's finally voted on. You can imagine in a 6-month time period, that's an absolutely incredible amount of time. And so to get a bill passed for anything in South Carolina is challenging. And when we hear of certain hearings that deal with values that are of importance to evangelical Christians, man, it takes almost instantaneous mobilization in order to be able to dive into that and exercise some influence in this particular area. Now, in this legislative session, interestingly enough, we actually had 3 possible pro-life bills that were moving its way through the Senate, and 4 if we count one other, which I believe was important as well. And I'm pulling these off the top of my head at the moment as we're doing the program. I know the first bill, at least it was important in my estimation, was the personhood bill. The personhood bill was an attempt to define when human life begins, in the woman's womb. When does the baby become a human being? And you need to think on that for just a moment. When is it a human being? When a woman becomes pregnant, and obviously they want the pregnancy, they usually announce to the world, "I'm having a baby," and that's how it's viewed. We're having a baby. Now, when a woman's not wanting the baby, and they feel like abortion may be a viable option for them, then they may say that this is a fetus. They may use the Latin word for baby, by the way, which is fetus. They might call it an embryo. They may call it some other name besides the name baby, because baby connotates a human being. But the question really is, at what point does this baby become a human being? And of course, it would come as no surprise to you that I believe that's at conception. I mean, there's a living egg and living sperm, and they connect. And there's a living human being. It's not an organ. It's not your pancreas. It's not your liver. It's not some organ in your body. This is a human being. And so personhood was making its way through the legislative process, and that was one of the bills that was being discussed. And we may come back to that here in just a moment. The second one was a 20-week fetal pain bill, basically stating that no abortion could take place at the 20-week or later mark because at that point, the baby feels pain. A lot of 20-week legislation is going on throughout the country. There are pro-life people that are very happy to see this kind of legislation take place. Obviously, we don't want any pain happening. In fact, I would love to see a one-day fetal pain bill. Because we believe that these babies are human beings. But since this is being contended with, the 20-week fetal pain bill came up. And in South Carolina, it's somewhat of, I don't want to throw too much negativity at it, except that in South Carolina, there are no abortions that take place after the 16-week mark. So therefore, if you pass a 20-week fetal pain bill, it doesn't really mean that much substantively in our state. So, for me, despite the fact this was moving through the legislative process, there wasn't reason really to put a lot of energy behind it, because ultimately, even if it passed, I'm not sure it would have had anything more than a minuscule effect with regards to abortion on demand within our South Carolina culture. So that was the second one. The third one had to deal with physician admitting privileges to hospitals, the closest hospital to an abortuary. And this was being moved through in order to, number one, make sure those women that are having abortions, and there are multiplied cases of women who have had abortions, and then something has gone wrong, and they've needed instant hospital help, hospital access. And if there are no doctors with admitting privileges, then it becomes an incredibly unsafe and almost dangerous type situation. I will fully admit that this type legislation has indeed put some abortuaries in a position that they could no longer be open as a clinic. So for me, this admitting privilege bill, puts economic stress on these abortion clinics, and they go away. And ultimately, that's a good thing. And so this was another piece of pro-life legislation that was moving through the legislative process. And finally, the fourth one, which can be applied sort of in a more distant sense, was there was legislation going through with regards to a pregnant woman who might be in imminent danger with regards to, a domestic abuse, someone, robbing her, let's say, or committing a crime against her, and that she would have the right as a pregnant woman to defend her baby that's in the womb with deadly force. You would think that would be something that could be supported by everyone, but amazingly enough, and I was actually in the hearings to watch this take place, there are people who are contending with the legislation that was attempting to move through the process, that they apparently do not want pregnant women to be able to stand their ground and to be able to protect their baby that they're carrying, need be, with deadly force. So these were some of the legislative items. You may or may not have known that, and at this time you may have never thought of any of these four. Well, the point I'm trying to make is this, and that is that all of these particular bills have been tied up in the committee hearing process. And we've done our best to spring them out. We've done our best to put heat appropriately where it belongs. And as I mentioned, next Sunday, I'm going to have a special interview, and we're going to open up hopefully some cans. I so want to tell you who's going to be here, but we're going to open up some cans, and we're going to let you know of some folk, maybe even names of folk that you would have thought would have been supporters in this particular area, but currently, for whatever reason, they're not supporting, it seems to me, some important legislation that is important to our evangelical Christian conservative values. And so you need to know about that. And so when you're making choices, when you go to ballot boxes and these sorts of things, you can begin to make informed, wise choices, because none of this legislation, believe it or not, was able to move through. All of it got shut down. All of it was closed off. And all of it is going to have to be picked up again January 1 of 2015. So this is probably a good spot for me to ask my listening audience for you to gear up, because in the next 6 months of this year, we're going to need to begin to send emails and letters, and we're going to need to communicate with our representatives. And this is a state issue. We're going to need to begin to communicate with our representatives as to what our desires for them to do. Remember, they are representatives. They are not giving us top-down leadership. We are giving them input as to how we want values to be codified within our culture. And I realize there's legalities and nuances and all kinds of things that have to be addressed, but there's an amazing amount of legitimacy to each one of these bills that we just need some appropriate heat applied in the right direction, and we can get a lot of great things done. Hey, I'm glad you're listening to me today. My name is Kevin Baird. I'm the voice of the True Disciple broadcast, as well as the lead pastor at Legacy Church here in Charleston, South Carolina, and we're sharing with you today on WTMA 1250. We appreciate you tuning in and listening this Sunday morning. I hope you're getting ready for church. If you don't have a local church, maybe you'll come check us out at Legacy Church. You can go to our website and you can get maps, directions, everything you need at legacychurchsc.org, legacychurchsc.org. Now, I've had people through the years look at me and say, hey, the church needs to stay out of these arenas. Politics is dirty. We really don't have any place. Really just worry about men's souls. Don't worry about cultural values. And I get that a lot. People have called me. In fact, I've had my face in the newspaper on occasion, and they've called me the political pastor. And I always chuckle, and I tell them I'm not the political pastor. I'm actually the faithful pastor. And the reason I believe it to be faithful is because you cannot say that Jesus is Lord or that Jesus is King and somehow compartmentalize that lordship or that kingship into just a certain set of arenas or areas and not every area of life. Jesus is Lord of lords. He is King of kings. So his lordship not only is over the church, his lordship is not only over your life, but it's over your marriage. It's over your family. It's over every arena of life. If you're a business owner and you're a Christian, he would be Lord of your business. Hence, Hobby Lobby and bakers and photographers who are being challenged whether or not they will participate in same-sex unions. Because you can't compartmentalize the lordship of Jesus Christ. And what's going to happen if our nation continues to go in the direction it's going in is that there's going to be a great challenge because we're finding more and more. There was it was Arizona or New Mexico. I'm sorry, I'm pulling this off the top of my head. Supreme Court ruling of whom the justice said that Christians were going to have to yield their faith or accommodate their faith to their citizenry in this nation. In other words, you're going to have to compromise your beliefs in order to be a good citizen. Well, that's simply not how this country was founded. This country was founded on absolute religious freedom. The First Amendment is clearly stated. It has been clearly adjudicated in those ways. And we're just here to encourage you to continue to make your stand and continue to be just ever vibrant in your faith. Don't be timid, but continue to be bold in living the life that you've committed yourself to, which is a life that reflects Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. But these things are happening in this era, and that is why we get involved in what some have called the political arena, because some value system is going to be codified. Somebody's value system eventually goes through the legislative process and becomes law, and the rest of us are expected to abide by it. And so I've often said there's no such thing as neutral. There's no such thing as a neutral ground. Some prevailing worldview, some philosophy, some idea, some set of understandings is going to eventually prevail in the culture. And right now, we're contending greatly over whether our historic Judeo-Christian ethic will be maintained as our guiding ethic, or whether or not a more secular, humanistic, I dare I say atheistic viewpoint even becomes the norm within our culture. And one will prevail. One will ultimately rise to the top and be codified within our culture. And that is why it is important that we bring our values and we bring our faith to the table of discussion and to the table of ideas, because we have every bit as much right to be able to articulate a worldview in a way, and it can be articulated in such a way that it is reflected even within the culture. And I'll tell you why, because people have often said to me, well, Pastor, isn't that jamming your religion down other people's throats? I mean, you wouldn't want that to be turned around and someone made to adhere to a philosophy that you don't want. Well, truth of the matter is, I'm already being challenged with those very ideas. I'm being told that prayer has to be compartmentalized. I'm being told that my values shouldn't be expressed. I mean, let's just be honest. We're already, as Christians, being challenged with other worldviews and ideas being jammed down our throat. But here's the difference. Jesus is the author of liberty. Jesus brings liberty even to those who don't want him. And this has been proven through the years. It's proven through the scriptures. Now, I may not agree with everyone's lifestyle, but the fact of the matter is that Christianity is the only worldview or philosophy that has allowed an atmosphere or has allowed a possibility of true liberty. If you don't think this is the case, all you have to do is go to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, go to Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon. I mean, I can go down the list of Muslim-dominated countries, and you can see instantly that tyranny reigns in those particular countries. So there is no sense of liberty. I mean, Christian worldview, the Judeo-Christian ethic has always brought about the greatest amount of liberty. Listen, go to Russia during the years of Lenin and Stalin. I mean, that was atheistic secularism in Russia. Look at the tyranny. Look at the tyranny that took place under atheism. You would have to also say the same with regards to North Korea or with regards to China. I could make a case that while Adolf Hitler had a sort of a vocal viewpoint of Christianity, if you'd actually study, he was actually more into the occult, and with Feuerbach and Nietzsche and some of the other German philosophers that he adhered to, it was ostensibly atheism. So the fact of the matter is that the Judeo-Christian ethic has been the ethic that has brought about in human history the greatest amount of liberty to a human being, even to those that wanted nothing to do with it. It brought them the greatest amount of liberty. I mean, simple things like not stealing, not murdering. The moral laws bring about certain boundaries that bring safety and stability into a culture, not just an individual, but into a culture's existence in life. And so here at the True Disciple broadcast, we are concerned about these things, and I wanted to take my 30 minutes this morning just to retool and to reboot with you these types of ideas. That's why we're here. We want a voice on the public airwaves that's doing its best to share with you that your Christian viewpoint is not only not only an option, but it's the best option, I believe, when it comes to seeing our culture and our nation prosper. Well, I'm so glad you tuned in today. Man, that was the quickest 30 minutes that I have done in a long, long time. I want you to tune in next week. We're going to be doing an interview, God willing, next week, and I want you to be a part of that. I want you to remember, as we're wrapping up today, that you can get to our website. Remember, legacychurchsc.org. I want you to check that website out, and I hope I get to meet you sometime at our local church here at Legacy. We're on Facebook, Twitter. You can find us in all kinds of places. We want to be able to connect with you. Hey, my time's running out, but whenever I wrap up, I always tell you all, until next time, I want you to keep walking faithfully, consistently your Christian walk, and you keep being that true disciple. My name is Dr. Kevin Baird, and I am wishing you a great day. God bless till next time.